YouTube. Welcome to episode 3 of Pagan Parenting. This is episode 1 of an 18-part series that I've decided to start on a book called A Witch's Primer by Lorin Manderly. It is meant for children of first grade age. And the reason this series is going to be 18 episodes long is because I want to go over each individual chapter with you through each episode. So none of the episodes will be very long, which is fine. It's just, I haven't finished the book myself with my son. We've only gotten up to chapter 2, and since we hadn't actually finished it yet, and I can't give you a review of the book personally, I thought I would just go on this journey through this book with you, and you can see what me and my son gets out of it as we go, and how I feel about it as we go. And the chapter 1 is about the goddess and the god. It gives brief and simple explanations of who they are, representations of them, the different stages of life that they go through as the seasons change, and the writing is big, so it's big enough for children to read at their age, and the chapters are short, so it doesn't bore the children too quickly and they don't lose focus. There's no pictures to help with concentration, but at the same time, since the chapters are pretty short, I don't see that as being a problem, especially since in chapter 1, it talks about what the god and goddess look like, and basically it explains they look like however you want them to look like. It depends on your traditions. And so it asks the child to draw pictures of the god and goddess and what you think they look like. And my son, this is his first really, I haven't been a pagan for very long, so I wanted to wait a year until I felt like, okay, for sure this is my beliefs, this is what I'm going to follow, and I wanted to read a few books of it on myself to understand it, to get a basic understanding of it before I started explaining it to my kids. So even though I have tried to explain to him a little bit, he still doesn't really know a whole lot of paganism and their beliefs, and I can't say he's shown any interest in it right now. But whether he chooses to be pagan or not, I still think it's great for him to at least understand it. And again, since we haven't really studied it much, he doesn't really have any mental images of what a goddess or god would look like. So this, and since the book has no pictures, this came straight off the top of his head. When he drew the pictures, this is what he drew. He basically made them look like peanut characters, probably because he had recently watched that movie when we went over that chapter. So yes, like I was saying, it goes over the maiden, mother, and crone, the green man, horn god, and holly king, and gives brief descriptions of each one, and that's all chapter 1 covers. It keeps it simple so they understand it, and it doesn't overwhelm them with too much information. So if you don't necessarily agree with everything the book says, I wouldn't judge it too harshly. Just keep in mind that they're trying to get children to understand this at their level, and you don't want to overwhelm them with too much complication or detail. So at least, because first grade, that's a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old. So you don't want to overwhelm them with too much if they're just starting out and have no idea what paganism is or what it believes. And especially since we come from a Christian background, my son understands God as God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, so this idea of God and goddess is definitely new. So it's getting him to understand that Christians believe this, pagans believe that, basically pagans believe this, and then if he decides to be pagan as an adult, he'll at least have he'll have tools to start that he's starting off with, so when he can start his own studies into more detailed and complicated information. So I'm personally interested in Druidry, but I'm not going to push Druidry on him yet, if at all, unless that's a choice that he makes. So just keep that in mind. Don't judge the book too harshly. It is meant for children. It is meant to be simple, not complicated. And it gives, like I said, it gives brief descriptions of each stage of their life as the god and goddess move through the seasons. And then on the last page in the chapter, it just gives a brief summary of what you read over in the chapter. And then it has a list of questions that you can go over with your child to see what they understood, what they may be confused on, and just to see how well they were paying attention. It works more as an attention getter for my son, because when I ask him the questions, it's like, oh, I should have been paying attention, and now he has to think, which is really good for him. And we may have to read over it a little bit. I liked, with him, I was planning to spend a week on each chapter anyway, just because he doesn't necessarily show a full amount of interest in something new. So I don't want to overwhelm him, so we'll spend a week on each one to know he understands it pretty well before moving on to the next chapter. So that is it for chapter 1, and I will see you next week, I hope, or you will see me next week for chapter 2. Blessed be, and goodbye.